Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal. Ever since the Turbo Boost event launched, I've been working diligently on my main character, trying to make sure that my rogue is outfitted with the best items out there at the highest item levels available. And now that I've spent a little bit of time on that character, now is the time to start gearing my alts. However, if you recently spent some time leveling your ult during the fortune buff, then you're having to level that character and gear him from scratch, as a fresh new character starts out with a fairly big gear gap away from everybody else, and catching up to everybody can sometimes be difficult, except as of recently, not really, as right now there's so many different ways that your main can directly contribute towards your ult gearing progression, and in fact you can actually help gear him out with a bunch of new items without even having to leave the capital city of Dornegal at all. So I wanted to go over all of the different ways that you can use your main character to gear out all of your freshly leveled ults, in order to make sure that the time spent kickstarting that character with some actual decent competitive items, so you're able to start diving into endgame dungeons and raids and delves and really getting to play out that character is as short as possible. So let's go over exactly how you could do just that. As always, if you guys want to get more regular updates for War Within expansion, especially with some of the content updates arriving very soon, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. But otherwise, let's dive right in. So as we go over all of these items, we're primarily going to take a look at them from a perspective of being able to play your main and then utilizing your main to get stuff for your alts. Like, there are a ton of ways right now where playing your main is actually going to mean catching up on your alts that much quicker. And the first one being Valorstone boxes, which have been, it looks like, hotfixed recently. When you go to the Mythic Plus building, where you have like normally the panda, the portal to the dungeons, on the left hand side there's actually now a dungeon exploration equipment vendor. Taking a look at the equipment vendor, it has Undermine equipment chests, which is pretty solid. I mean, these boxes have been around last season, and even an expansion like Dragonflight before it. Normally this gear isn't that great. Usually it's like, I don't know, I want to say almost veteran track in past seasons, but this time around they decided to completely flip it on its head. Now you can buy these boxes and it started at 636 item level, which is notable because that means these are actually champion track boxes. This is huge because the item level that these are going to start with is actually going to be champion track 1 out of 8. Basically the item level of gear you can get from Mythic 0 dungeons or even normal raid of Undermine. This is massive. So for just a little bit of Valorstones, you can now send a box to your ults, and it can be any number of items, specifically from the current dungeon pool of Season 2 dungeons. It's essentially a way for you to be able to dump a lot of your Valorstones and convert them into a useful item, specifically gear, that you also will be able to utilize. And it's a little bit RNG as to what you get out of it, because with these boxes, it's kind of like a in-game loot box in a way. It could be a belt, it could be a weapon, or it could be a number of any of the powerful trinkets from the current season set of dungeons. So you could technically get items as bad as Cujo's trinket, which is not that great. The Flame Vents is kind of renowned as like not a great trinket whatsoever. Or you could possibly get something out of Priory like a Signet potentially. Maybe if you're a tank, you could possibly get a Tome of the Light's Devotion. And being able to get these items even on champion track without even having to step a foot in the dungeon is actually kind of massive, to be honest. And it looks like the best part is it doesn't seem to have any requirements, like you don't need any specific rating or score to buy these boxes. Previously, you had to obtain like a certain score within Mythic Plus dungeons before you could start buying them, but it looks like you just start buying them on any character right now, and everybody has access to these boxes. Even on my rogue, which I'm gearing up over on the EU side of things, I definitely don't have any Mythic Plus score, and I can start buying these boxes immediately if I wanted to, which is just so wild to me. So you could look at potentially a bunch of champion track pieces for any of your alts that you just got freshly leveled up, and with the fact that Valorstones can now be transferred across multiple characters, it doesn't really take all that long for you to be able to pull all those Valorstones together and try to transfer as many of them as possible in order to grab a bunch of these boxes and potentially get a bunch of items for a fresh new character. That is, if you get a little bit of luck getting different pieces instead of repeat items like multiple belts, bracers, or things such as that. Those of you that are a bit more PvP inclined, there's something similar like this on the Conquest of Vendors. If you take a look at the inventory from Lalandi over at the final page, you actually see the prize equipment chests, which do have a requirement, however, for PvP. You first need to obtain 1400 rating in any PvP bracket. This is being comp-based stuff like 2v2, 3v3 RBGs, or solo stuff like solo shuffle or solo blitz. But as soon as you get 1400 rating, you can start converting 375 conquest points into a prized equipment chest in order to be able to send it out to all of your alts. And just like the Valorstone chest, it can contain an assortment of any random PvP trinkets or items or weapons, which if anything for a fresh new character, like any of these items are going to be a great starting pieces of gear in order to start getting into PvP fairly quickly. And just about anything for the first few boxes, unless you get repeat items, should generally be a bit of an upgrade for you. During War Within Season 1, we actually had a decent source of early gear for all of your ults that came from the Renown track vendors. Because you spend a lot of time on your main working towards the Renown for 4 different factions, it meant that your characters, your fresh new ults, had at least 4 unique items that they could get on champion track gear immediately as soon as they got to max level. In the Undermine update, there's only one Renowned Quartermaster, but I think it's still worth noting it, and the Renowned Quartermaster does have gloves that are champion track, 1 of each type from cloth, leather, plate, and mail, which if anything could be at least one easy item that you can obtain from the Renown vendor. Another way that you main can help out your ults is actually through delves, which is one of the best content you could just dive into when you have a brand new character. Like if you don't have any gear at all, there's a pretty good chance that not a lot of groups are going to accept you for some dungeons, but you could just do some solo content with Brand and there's no shot the Brand can decline you from that content. But the way that your main can actually help out your ults is if you are sitting on a bunch of undercoins on your main, like if you've been working on delves every single week, you can just buy some restored coffer keys. Technically, you can get them from completing open world content on an alt, or you can just buy them off of your main, and you can also buy the wave scrambler. So at the very least, you can guarantee one map at least once a week on that alt character, which can award you with hero track gear. And to get hero track items, you at least need to do delves on at least tier 8 difficulty or higher. Ideally 11 if you're trying to get a gilded crest on top of it, but at least tier 8 minimum just to get some hero track pieces on that character. But it's yet another way that your main can actually help outfit your ults. Now, another way that you'll be able to do so in just a handful of days, depending when you watch the video, or you can actually do this right now, is through visions. As running visions on your main can actually help you drop gear within visions of veteran track, champion track, and even hero track quality, depending on the difficulty of visions that you run. Now, all of this gear can actually be further upgraded over at the champion weaponsmiths found on the side here with an extra component called Warbound Purifying Kit, which unlocks the ability for some of those items that you get within visions to become warbound as a guarantee. So that means any gear that you get on that character can actually just be passed on to your ults. The other vendor, Cherny, actually has another upgrade item called the Enchanted Warbound Purifying Kit. Basically the same item, but it allows you to now upgrade your champion items from Horrific Visions to become warbound until equipped. For that one, however, you will require to complete a run with 5 Faceless Masks active, which is kind of like an affix system of the Horrific Visions specifically, which enables additional difficulty scaling towards Visions, which also rewards you with better gear and rewards and currency and things like that. But completing a run unlocks you the Enchanted Warbound Purifying Kit, which you'll be able to purchase directly for Displaced Corrupted Mementos, a currency which you can actually farm endlessly through this content, so it shouldn't really take you that long in order to be able to start transforming some of those gear from the visions into warbound items to send over to your alts. Now, the final way that your main can use gear in order to help out your alts is through warbound items that you'll just obtain while competing in endgame content within War Within. Like when you run raids, you can actually get up to hero track items that can drop as warbound gear that can be sent over to alts. From normal raid, you'll get veteran track. From heroic raid, you can get champion track warbound gear. But if you kill mythic bosses, there's a chance you can get some hero track items to send to your alts, which is kind of wild. And that's a new change as part of the War Within Season 2. You can also get a bunch of champion track gear from Mythic Plus dungeons, and even gear from delves, or just about anything you do out in the open world, and just about any endgame activity can have a chance to give you some war-bound loot. So double check your bags to make sure that you're not throwing all of those items out, because there's a pretty good chance one of your alts could most likely use them in order to help get that character caught up and dive into the endgame content much quicker than you normally would, without any of those bonus items to help out all of your fresh new alts. But with that, as always, I do want to thank all of you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give this video a like. I would very much appreciate it. Join our Discord community, especially if you want to keep up with any class patch notes or future patch updates like level 1.7 or any of the future upcoming content that we'll be receiving very soon. Also, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.